Hey everybody, welcome to the Blue Chip Podcast by fans for fans. This is your host Cody Potter. How y'all doing today? So we had a couple comments, man. I'm going to start with the first thing. This is not what I'm going to do for the request that I had from Salah Harzi. I do appreciate you guys watching, man. So this is going to be more interactive, man. This is more Q&A and kind of things like that I'm going to discuss. Just topics, man. So this is going to be heavily wide receiver based and just offensive focus for the Washington Commanders, man. But I was asked to do a breakdown on some Brandon Ayiuk route running clips. So I have this right here. This is not the remedy to the question that was asked. I'm actually going to break down some all 22 things, but these are some cut ups from Brandon Ayiuk when he's playing with San Francisco. Just route concepts, man. And there's a difference. You know, everybody thinks route concepts route you up, man. Like having these like interval breaks and stuff like that. And we know Brandon Ayiuk can do all the man coverage things. You're gonna see a lot of those in this clip. It's not a long clip, but we're gonna discuss this, man. But there's a lot more that goes into route running than simply being able to just route some individual player up. It's about knowing how to route up systematically for the zones, man. There's a lot of things that come out of the Shanahan offense, and the biggest thing about Brandon Ayiuk, and the reason I'm actually not against signing Brandon Ayiuk, it really isn't about the connection with Jaden Daniels. I mean, that's a part of it. But as you see, man, like they're showing a lot of man clips, man, but there's a lot of times where Brandon Ayiuk is winning in zone sets, and that's the nuances of the Shanahan offense. And realistically, man, all David Blau's offense, you know, whether we're talking about Ben Johnson, whether we're talking about Sean McVay, all the offenses are West Coast concepts, man, and then they all have their own variations of how they do it. Shanahan is very much timing, rhythmic, and things like that, which of course is the West Coast principles and things like that. But Kyle Shanahan does it a little bit differently, where Sean McVay, David Blau, Ben Johnson, they like to run the same principles out of a lot of different formations and things like that. So like they're going to give you 5 different looks where they run the same exact play out of those 5 different looks, and then they're going to do other variations of other plays out of those same 5 looks pre-snap and things like that. So again, as you see these Brandon Ayiuk wins, like just his route concepts, the cuts, the nuances, the in and out of his breaks, that's something Brandon Ayiuk is specialized in. And I mean, honestly, like that's probably where a lot of the injuries and things like that come from, man. It's you have to be in a certain shape. I'm going to put this next clip on just simply because this is where this topic is leading me to when it comes to Brandon Ayiuk. But Brandon Ayiuk is a really, really good player, man. Like I'm not like my only opinion on this, man. I try not to get into off the field, man. I scout football, I scout college players, man. Like that's what I do. I think about everything from a team building standpoint, which is why I have this highlight going on behind me. But again, man, like I've been at jobs. I've had jobs, good jobs, career jobs type things where you're working with a company and just it's no good. Like what communication, whether it is what it is, man. Sometimes things just run their course. And when you feel it's time to be gone, you know, due to disagreements, different opinions, outlooks on how things should be ran. I mean, anybody that's ever had a job that they've just not been happy to, man, it is a miserable thing to wake up in the morning and be miserable going to work somewhere that you don't want to be or you don't feel wanted. And I think a lot of people can at least relate to that. And I mean, honestly, I'm a judgment-free kind of guy. Like, I mean, like everybody has their own ways that they would handle things, but I know I have said and done things in my life that personally I've regretted whatever it was, wish I could have handled it differently, even in some of those situations with bad jobs to get to another, you know, opportunity. So I think we can all at least have some sympathy for that. Which is why I'm not going to judge the guy for wanting to get out of a situation where he doesn't feel wanted, where he doesn't want to be, where he doesn't feel he can be his best self. I mean, realistically, man, like I have a lot of faith in the Lord and things like that. So like I try to look at it like if he feels it's run his course there and he wants to be somewhere else and he no longer wants to be there, I think it has a lot more to do with things that have happened behind the scenes than it does with just simply wanting to play with Jaden Daniels. I think he obviously that's where he wants to go now, and I think that's where since he is in this situation and it is just going this ugly, of course he's going to try to control the narrative. But we saw this with Trent Williams, we saw it with Carson Palmer. Like realistically, man, there's a lot of double standard, and that's why I just don't get into it. Like if Christian McCaffrey can rehab in Germany, if Nick Bosa can rehab in Florida, like let's keep it real, man. Like Brandon Ayiuk is obviously just not a fit for what they want on or off the field collectively. It doesn't really matter whether they like him on the field and then just cannot stand him off the field. Like whatever it is, the concept is just run its course. It is up to the company to handle their thing because contractually there is nothing Brandon Ayiuk can do outside of just simply showing up. And that's how I would personally handle it at this point. But that is me being 36 years old, older, and more mature, and obviously going through the process of handling this situation in a way that I didn't like that how I handled it in my 20s. So I mean, anybody that wants to just simply say whatever, man, I know how I was in my 20s, so I can have some empathy for him. And that's where I'm going to leave it. Like for me, I really don't want to talk about Brandon Ayiuk. I am going to do a route cut up clip for somebody that requested it from me on a Q&A. And I'm just going to do that because that's the football aspect of it, and I like that. And I think Brandon Aiyuk's route clips are really amazing, so I'm going to do it because that's fun for me. But I wanted to, put it on here just in the beginning, just to kind of give it a little prequel, like lead up to it. But again, so to the player I got in the background, man, this is where I'm going with all this, because while I had another comment, and it was something that this is more my thing. River City player 4790. Again, thank you guys for tuning into the pod. Thank you for commenting. Gives me an opportunity to talk a little bit a different side of variation. It's simply more of an unscripted, kind of just winging it pod, and I get to just talk ball, and that's what I like to do. So again, I appreciate you guys checking out the pod, and that's where this whole episode is basically based off of. I'm a draft and develop kind of guy. He was like, I'm like the first person that said, podcast or YouTube guy that's, not talking about wanting Stephon Diggs or, all in for Brandon Ayiuk kind of thing, because realistically, man, to me, it's draft and developing. Like when I look at this 2027 class, and this guy that is playing behind me, I'm playing his clips because he's probably going to get the least amount of pub, simply because he goes to Rutgers. He could have transferred, probably gotten himself a lot of money. I mean, we're talking about a 6'6", 225 guy that's probably running around a 4.4, 4.42. A reason that I like Jaden Bradley, an undrafted free agent that the Washington Commanders picked up this year out of UNLV, probably like a 4.38, 4.42, a 4.42 athlete who is 6'4", 205, 215 pounds. And he has a really, really refined route nuance. And that's what I like about KJ Duff. Not only does he win, with his body, physically, boxing out. Everybody wants the tall receiver. I've never really been that high on tall receivers. I am more of a route you up kind of guy. Like, I tend to really, really fall in love with those 5'11", 6'1", in that threshold, kind of like 195, 200-pound guys like the Justin Jeffersons of the world. I love Amon St. Brown, even though he's a little bit heavier in the bulk category, not quite as fast, but still route you up kind of guy. Typically Jordan Tyson would be my favorite wide receiver in the draft. It was simply injury concerns for me. And it's going to lead me to another player that I'm going to highlight after this. But again, I mean, when I'm looking at this next year's 2027 class, yes, I'm okay with Brandon Ayiuk for a year. I don't bank anything on Brandon Ayiuk. I'm fine with him being here. But there's something that I look at for every free agent or every veteran player in the NFL once they've gotten through their rookie contract. Like, realistically, the identity of your team is drafted and developed. They are the only players that are on your roster for basically guaranteed 4 to 5 years. I mean, at least contractually. You don't see those type of contracts anymore outside of what Patrick Mahomes or the you hit on your franchise quarterback. This is the only contracts that realistically implicate your team for more than 2 to 3 years, contractually, where you put yourself outs and the guaranteed money ends. So again, that's why it's so heavy based on drafting and developing. I'm okay with Brandon Ayiuk, but I don't bank anything on Brandon Ayiuk. If he comes here and he balls out, great. But it's the same thing with Treylon Burks. It's a placeholder kind of thing. Like, if I'm signing any free agent, it's realistically that is a key part of my roster for the next 2 years, while I am looking to draft and develop a replacement for that player and develop that player to eventually take over for them at a lower term contract. And that is how you have not only success in this league, but sustained success in this league. And that, I mean, realistically, the draft is the lifeblood of your organization, unless you are the LA Rams and you're Sean McVay and your system is that good and you're constantly adding blue level players, but eventually you're going to have to pay the piper for that, whether it's contractually. Like, there's a lot of money pushed into the back end of their deals, down the term. So eventually they're going to run into a situation where they're like the New Orleans Saints. The New Orleans Saints in 2027, this will be the first year that they're going into a season that is like under the cap figure that they were still paying Drew Brees up until this point, and players that they had under contract, heavy terms, Michael Thomas, guys like that. I mean, so realistically, eventually you do get it. And the Philadelphia Eagles will start to feel that. Like, this is why A.J. Brown is getting moved. The only thing about the Philadelphia Eagles, where they are doing it much differently than what the New Orleans Saints did, is they traded A.J. Brown. They're completely recouping draft picks while they're doing all this. Recouping draft picks for Carson Wentz. Like, they're getting rid of expensive players, but they're also recouping draft picks and replacing these players and having more draft picks and shot at the board. And that's why they're not hitting at a higher clip than any other team. They're just simply having more darts to throw at the wall at the higher end of the draft, where you have a more statistical, likelihood of hitting on your pick, or at least getting a competent player to be a competent role player on your roster. So again, man, like, that's where it comes into play, and that's the difference between Howie Roseman. That's why he's playing chess and not checkers. But when I look at this 2027 draft class, I mean, I don't think we're going to be anywhere near Jeremiah Smith, and honestly, we're probably not going to be anywhere near Ken Coleman. But when I look at a KJ Duff, like, again, not my normal type of receiver. I'm not saying I don't like big receivers. Of course I like big receivers. Like that, they all, like, everybody wants to have the biggest, tallest, fastest Calvin Johnson. Like, everybody wants that player. I love Brandon Marshall. I love Andre Johnson as a Miami U fan. Like, I have nothing against big wide receivers. I just value route concepts and things like that, the nuances of the game, being able to find the soft spots in the zone, not always having to go win with your body and then come crashing down to the ground hard as shit, because as we've seen with a lot of bigger wide receivers, DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Johnson, like, a lot of times they're carrying a lot of injuries into the postseason, and you need them guys if they're going to be your workhorse. Carrying injuries into the postseason is how your team gets thrown out every year in the postseason. You underperform in the postseason. It's great to have a 1,500-yard receiving season and be top of the league in those categories, man. But if you're not healthy come playoff time, what good is it? You got to be available and produce in the playoffs. So again, when I look at a lot of bigger, taller wide receivers that are simply winning physically above the rim, Drake London type and things like that, they deal with a lot of injuries. Julio Jones coming crashing down to the ground, the hamstrings and things like that. Like, you just notice these things with long striders and things like that. To where KJ Duff is a guy that I really do like the way that he wins with his route nuance, beyond just playing physically above the rim and things like that. I think he can win both ways, which is something that I do like. And I think he's highly slept on in this draft class, simply because he's playing at Rutgers and not playing at in Indiana and Alabama, the Ohio States of the world, the teams like that. That's why I wanted to really get into him. Because, I mean, realistically, man, like, Brian Wesco Jr., like, I like all three. Like, whether it's TJ Moore or Brian Wesco Jr., like, I really liked Antonio Williams coming out last year. I really thought that, like, the Clemson, Tigers had 3 number 1 wide receivers at what they do. I mean, whether it's Antonio Williams playing inside, like, I feel like he can be a number 1 type player, or number 1B player on your roster, playing from the slot, who can also line up outside and win outside vertically and things like that. We've seen him do it. And then, has the feel for zones and things like that, which I was very excited for that pick. I thought we got amazing value. I thought he was a second-round player all day. Coming into the season, I thought he was going to be one of the top wide receivers in the draft. And we know what happened at Clemson, of course. But, then we can talk about, like Nick Marsh and, the transfer from Michigan State that's going to be playing at Indiana this year with Charlie Becker and things like that. And this is Antonio Williams playing here. So just for, content in the background. So again, man, like, when I'm looking at this team, this is all based around the Brandon Ayiuk thing. Like, I'm cool with Brandon Ayiuk for a year. I mean, like, realistically, like, there's any, if you came here and had 900 yards receiving to 1,100, 1,200 yards. I think 1,200 yards would be his absolute cap. Like, I mean, that's more than... I think Terry McLaurin is going to be around 1,300 this year. So I would say Brandon Ayiuk would realistically be around the lower end of that, would be around 850, 900 to maybe sniffing 1,000. I mean, that's talking insane production. I mean, that's Pierre Garçon, like Deshaun Jackson level of production. And that was also with Jordan Reed lining up inside, man. It's very hard to put up those type of numbers between 2 or 3 players. And I think Chigakwanko, I think Antonio Williams is going to have a big impact on this roster and produce. I think Treylon Burks is actually going to excel in his role, whatever it is. I think he can give you some of that Deebo Samuel thing in his own right. Like I said, I'm okay with Brandon Ayiuk. I think that's the absolute ceiling, is like the 900-yard, 950. Could he sniff 1,000? I mean, it's possible. I mean, but you're talking about having a top five, top three offense in the league if you're getting those type of numbers around what I expect this running game to be. Again, I'm okay. I'm okay with a 1-year prove a deal. I was even okay with trading a 7th-round pick or a 7th-round pick swap kind of thing, whatever it is. But again, it's 1 year. It like kind of similar to the Deebo Samuel thing. And then if it pans out, like maybe you do re-sign him, put a lot of stipulations in his contract for workout bonuses and things like that, whatever it is, to keep him motivated, like give yourself outs, like guarantees are for June 1st, being on the active roster, June 1st kind of thing, like whatever it is, like the way that things have gone in San Francisco, you'd have to put in a lot of things in this contract to protect yourself as a team, because you cannot have this kind of, distraction. And that's why no team is going to trade for him on his current deal. It would completely have to be reworked. Again, a lot of things, a lot of factors into it contractually. I think we have enough weapons around Jaden Daniels. I think Jaden Daniels is the type of quarterback that excels and improves players around him. I think he's a truck, dude. Like, if anybody listens to Daniel Jeremiah, like they do the truck and trailers, thing. Jaden Daniels is a truck, man. Like he elevates the players around him, and I think he's going to very much continue doing that. And I think he's only growing in his own right. And it's only year 3. By year 5, I think you're going to see face of the league type things, and I think it's going to start this season because this offense is absolutely perfect. I mean, dude, like. This isn't a quarterback's best friend type offense, and then you factor in Jaden Daniels' legs. It's elite. And then looking forward to next year's draft, like I said, I'm okay with Brandon Ayiuk. 1 year, I could re-sign him, but nothing Brandon Ayiuk brings in the next year, 2, 3, whatever it is, like none of that factors into the drafting and developing factor of the roster. When I'm looking at next year's class, like every year they have done what I believe you do when you are coming in and doing a total complete overhaul rebuild. If your quarterback is there, you draft that guy year 1. You got to get him in, you got to get him developing, and we did that. Year 2, I always believe you build the protection for the quarterback first. It is shown time and time again that drafting a wide receiver high in the draft on a rebuilding roster does not translate to team success. So I always believe get your quarterback, protect your quarterback. That like there's 3 main facets of the game in team building, perspective, and that is get the quarterback, kill the other team's quarterback, and protect yours. Those are the 3 most important aspects of the game. So again, like I look at it like that, and we have done those things. It was year 1, Jaden Daniels. Year 2, Josh Connerly Jr. and Laramie Tunsil was also, as we can tell from our draft, total draft haul, we have gave up some draft assets for Laramie Tunsil. Brandon Coleman, re-signing Sam Cosmi. Like the focus has been on the offensive, front. Year 3, typically, get your quarterback the weapon and also infuse your defense. You did the thing with Sonny Styles. Year 4, the draft is and Antonio Williams. So year 4, it is generally at that part, get the best player available that is going to elevate your roster, whether that is wide receiver, whether that is a dominant premier edge, whether you want to trade assets to move up in the draft to get your guy, whatever it is from that point. Next year's class has all these things. I mean, we could even throw in cornerback in this because I believe next year's class at the 3 positions that this team, realistically, I could see them throwing the most assets into to take this roster over the top even further from what I believe it's going to show its growth on this current roster. Cornerback, wide receiver, and edge. I believe that is going to be the focus of next year's draft, and not just because of the need. I think it's going to be where the value is in the draft. Like I can go through all the edges. I did it on my earlier pod, if you want to go back and check out my pod where I did the 2027 look or the 2026 look ahead for the season on the edge in the wide receiver class. The cornerback class is loaded too. I mean, like the three positions that we need the most, we are going to be staring down one of the more talented players in the draft at a position that is going, a highly valued position. The second contract deals are usually very, very expensive. I'm looking very much forward to the 2027 class, not only because it is in Washington, because I believe we're going to hit a home run player. And I believe we hit a home run player, not just with our number 7 pick, but with Antonio Williams. I think next year Antonio Williams is going to be really, really good for this roster. Something else beyond what I'm just talking about is, and the reason I believe that you need to go wide receiver next year, not you don't force the pick, obviously, but like if the edge player that you love is there, you take the edge player. But if the wide receiver that you absolutely want to be the face of your franchise moving forward, not because I'm talking about getting rid of Terry McLaurin, I just believe after this season, Terry McLaurin is going to be getting into that Santana Moss range where it is, I want him here for the remainder of his career. I'm willing to kind of overpay him in certain aspects of that. Finishing out the contract that he just currently signed last year, I am willing to overpay him for maybe a season beyond the production you're going to get, but maybe he does produce at that level. But either way, what I'm doing is I am drafting his long-term replacement. I am drafting the long-term, number 1 for Jaden Daniels. And if Antonio Williams becomes that, that's great. That's fine. Like, I have nothing against that, but I'm going to get Antonio Williams a running mate as well. No matter what happens this year, like wide receiver is still going to be very, very much in the key for me focus for the long-term development of this roster, the face of this roster. What I want my roster to look long-term, because as I said, you draft and develop the identity of your roster. Next year, whether it is edge, whether it's wide receiver, whether it's cornerback, I am getting an identity player at one of those 3 positions because the value is going to be there in next year's class. We have the need for that player, or not even just necessarily because it's a need position. I think we have done enough to where those positions are not need positions, but it is where you want to excel and improve. And those are the 3 positions where I think getting a face of the franchise player would be a take you over the top kind of addition in the draft, especially long term in the developmental aspects of it. And if you continue to draft off of the boards that they have been drafting off of, where they are schematical fits for the coaching staff that they have, I believe they will excel, and that is how I believe you have success drafting and developing your players. And next year's class, like I said, the wide receiver position is loaded. It's not because I'm trying to replace Terry. Terry is here for me, in my opinion. I mean, unless some kind of I'm not even going to say it, but just Terry McLaurin would get the Santana Moss treatment for me. He would finish his career here. Unless he's trying to stay in the 30, whatever. But if he's giving me a Mike Evans deal after his contract that he is currently on is going, yes, he is staying here for the rest of his career. I will overpay him a tick because of his impact and the things he has deserved. From the impact that he has given this team, he is the heart and soul player in the locker room. Like, you can just see the energy is different in OTAs with Terry McLaurin, and you can tell he's excited about working with Jaden Daniels and actually having the chemistry build from year 1, year 2, year 3 with Jaden Daniels, man. And yes, last year didn't go the way that we wanted, but like I said, it's also up to Adam Peters and this staff to find the long-term replacement for Terry McLaurin. It's not about necessarily just replacing him, but it's about having the guy behind Terry McLaurin for when it is time to take over for him, as you kind of continue to switch what Terry McLaurin's going to be. But I think you're going to see a lot of what they do in Detroit with Amon-Ra St. Brown, with Puka Nacua and things like that with Terry McLaurin. And we've seen him do that with Jay Gruden a little bit, creating after the catch, playing inside, playing outside, mixed variations and things like that. Jay Gruden used Terry McLaurin very, very effectively, and I love the way. And again, similar concepts and similar things. So we've already seen Terry McLaurin do it. Now we're going to see Terry McLaurin do it with not only just Terry McLaurin and Jaden Daniels, but better weapons around him, which he has never really had in this offense. So again, I expect a career year from Terry McLaurin. Like I said, I don't necessarily know if he gets over that career 13 touchdown mark, but I think he's going to be sniffing it. I think 11 touchdowns are realistic for what Terry McLaurin is going to be. He's always been one of them guys that's gotten tackled at the 1 yard line, about to score kind of thing. So again, I appreciate everybody that tunes into this show and comments and leave, like I said, I love answering questions. I love just talking ball. That's where this episode kind of came from. So this was a freestyle kind of thing. Just kind of going over the wide receivers, the situation. I mean, like I said, me personally, I'm fine. I'm fine with what we have. But when you go on socials and things like that, it's wide receiver, wide receiver, wide receiver, wide receiver. And every year that we've talked about Brandon Ayiuk, like I said, like I said it on Football Forum, man. Like the last time that we talked about Brandon Ayiuk this heavily here in Washington in the offseason, we went to the NFC Championship game. So hopefully the fact that we're talking about him even more this year, maybe we can excel past that and get 2 more wins, and that would be great because that means we're picking at home 2027 in the draft, pick 32, and that would be that's a dream come true for me. There's a lot of things that happen between now and then, so I ain't calling that. I'm just saying that would be awesome. Of course it would. But so again, like, thank you guys for checking out the pod, man. I really do appreciate anybody taking out the time just listening to me talk ball. This is what I love to do. A lot of college things are to come. I will continue to give the Commanders content. Of course, we're heading to mandatory minicamp. I'll be discussing those things. And, I'll be breaking it down in training camp and things like that. I'll be live in training camp and all that. And, we'll have some clips. We'll do a lot of discussions. We'll talk about players that are excelling. I mentioned Jaden Bradley because he is excelling and, kind of making his presence felt as a 6'4" wide receiver. He is the tallest wide receiver we have on our roster. And I'm just excited for the position. I think just because the names aren't there on paper, I think the talent and the schematical fits are there on paper for this roster. So I'm a little bit more excited about what we do have currently than whatever. Is it going to translate this year? I don't know. I mean, it's the root of drafting and developing, but I do trust our quarterback, so I do expect this position to excel along with the tight ends and things like that and the additions there. And I still believe in Ben Sinnott in his own right. I do believe in Chigga Kwanko very much, and I think that's why him and Ben Sinnott are going to be very good. And I like Jesse Bates too. I think Bates is a really good player for what he is, and I think he can excel beyond what he's been asked to do. Just simply because he is an amazing blocker. So he guys like that kind of get lost down the field and they make big plays for you in critical moments. So again, thank you guys for giving me the content for the kind of topic for this pod. It just made it easier for me to kind of talk ball with y'all. I really do appreciate it, man. So for everybody, have a blessed week. Finish out the week strong, man. Love your families, and really appreciate you guys sticking around for the Blue Chip Podcast. Have a blessed week. Peace.